The British media has a long, storied history of being very, very unethical, reaching lows that we couldn't possibly think that they could reach. From the Leveson inquiry a few years ago, where it was found out that wholesale snooping in on people's phone calls were being done by these outlets, such as the News of the World, which is no longer with us. I think even the Daily Mirror was caught doing it. I think loads of other tabloids were caught spying on people, phone tapping them in order to get stories. Let's not forget the endless amount of smearing and harassment that they have done continuously against celebrities and just normal members of the public. They've actively encouraged this behaviour and engaged in this behaviour. They've been particularly vicious against the likes of Tommy Robinson, who is more on the political side of things. They've been consistently attacking him, demonising him, along with the state. It's almost as if they work together with each other, but I don't know, guys. So the newest victim of this smearing tactic is none other than our boy, Sargon of Akkad. And, well, let's just say that when at first half-truths and misrepresentation doesn't work, I guess in the end, the Daily Mail took it upon themselves to go a step further and go into libel, and, well, let's just say it's not going to work out well for them. So, in this Daily Mail article, Daily Mail printed a quote, a very alarming quote, and it goes as following. I could be quoted as saying, "You can fuck young boys. It's actually not as controversial as you think. Depends on the child, doesn't it? The ancient Greeks were pederasts. It was considered to be normal. It was mentoring." Sounds really, really bad, doesn't it, guys? Sounds like the Daily Mail really got Carl now, eh? Ooh, just when Carl thought he was gonna get away with it. Well, turns out it's bullshit. Because you see, some internet sleuths did a bit of digging. And if some of you have watched Sargon's videos and live streams, you may actually already be familiar with some of the words in that quote. That's because they're from two completely different sources that the Daily Mail journalist decided to stitch together to create something new. The first part of this quote comes from a Justicar live stream where Justicar actually talks about being a victim of sexual abuse. And then the other half comes from the infamous Amos Yee interview where Carl isn't even agreeing with him. He's basically summing up an argument that paedophiles use. He's not even trying to say that this is something that society should push for. No, he says quite clearly afterwards that the British age consent, which is 16, is just about right. And in fact, later on in other videos, believe it or not, I think he's come to this quite honestly, that he thinks that it should be raised to 18 because people are staying at home longer, they're being a bit more infantilised, they're not really getting out there into the world on their own and growing up like regular, normal adults. But nowhere has he said that we ought to be having relationships with little boys and little girls. Nowhere. He's actually saying the complete opposite. And the thing is with the whole Justicar thing, that whole quote comes from them discussing Justicar and how he started really being sexually active at a very, very young age. And this is true, this isn't something that's controversial, everybody agrees with this, that people tend to mature at different rates. For most people, it seems to be roughly 16 to 18, but for some people, it's earlier, and for some people, it's later. That's okay to say, because that is a scientific fact. But we have that law there, and this is what Sargon has consistently said, we have that law to protect the people who are too young, because we can't take the risk that they are not mentally prepared, they are not mentally mature. They might be physically mature, but are they necessarily mentally mature to have sex with somebody? No, and it's also to make sure that older people do not in any way try to use these kids for their own personal gain, to manipulate them. It's another reason why we don't make 16-year-olds vote, because they don't know crap about politics unless they're incredibly smart and intelligent. Now, this great big discovery by the Daily Mail was given to the UKIP NEC via a dossier, and essentially this was sent to them so they could basically kick him out of the party, because for some reason they're very scared of Carl actually making an impact in British politics, guys. But the thing is, the UKIP party and leadership already knew about this. They already knew the full context, they already knew what he had been saying online, and so nothing was done about it. Because there was nothing to be done about it. There was nothing that had to be done or needed to be done because they knew what he was actually saying. And it was nothing like what the Daily Mail or any of the other mainstream media outlets are trying to make him look like he's saying. Now the mainstream press and establishment in Britain are getting really worried because UKIP seem to be gaining a bit of traction. Ever since PJW, ever since Dankula and Sargon joined the party, they had an upsurge in support and numbers. It's not a big number, But for a small party like UKIP that had quite a meteoric rise and then a sharp decline, it's a big rise. I think it was what, a couple of tens of thousands of people joined the party? That's big for them, and that's worrying for the establishment, because as I said in my last video, small parties that gain a bit of traction scare the crap out of the mainstream because it can snowball into something bigger. So they're essentially trying to nip Sargon in the bud. They're taking no chances because they don't know if he's going to be another Trump. Not necessarily become Prime Minister, but an unexpected electoral success. They're worried about that because he's going to start exposing a lot of stuff that's going on in the European Parliament that a lot of people don't usually see, and he can explain it in a way that normal people can understand. And they don't want that. They don't want him to have that first-hand view of all that. And they also don't want him to have any kind of influence where he can impact his local area in that way. Even though MEPs don't really have that much of an influence, it's more influence than the average person. They're okay with him, I guess, for the most part, being on YouTube where he can't really do anything because it's the internet. Yes, he's making content and changing people's minds slowly over time, but it's not enough, and they've got the bigger propaganda apparatus. They're fine with us being on the internet because they can control us in a way, they can corral us, they can ban us, and in real life they can simply arrest us. However, if we start actually making real political gains in this country, then they're going to have an issue with that, aren't they? And the fact that they're so desperate that they have to actually make things up and stitch things together suggests that they're running out of ideas. They're just throwing crap at the wall and hoping that it sticks. They're hoping that people aren't smart enough to work out that this is actually fake. But I don't think they are, and I don't think that they anticipated such a level of weaponised autism. But don't think the Daily Mail are going to stop there, and don't think all the other outlets are not going to stop there. Even if Sargon will sue them, they're used to libel cases. The British press is always in some kind of libel case. Whether they win or lose, they don't care. They've got the money to pay for it. They don't care. They'll continue doing it. The incentive is there because as long as they can convince enough people that this lie is true, then their job is done. It's the big lie, guys. They'll keep telling it over and over again as long as they can until they get sued and lose, and then enough people will believe that it's true even though it isn't. Which is why it's up to us to make sure that we share every single possible video we can that debunk all the lies about anybody who the press are going after, regardless of political stance. Nobody should be lied about. We must declare a war against fake news and dishonesty, because otherwise we're going to lose. And I think it's about time we punish these guys, don't you think? We do a little bit of advertising boycotting. Remember Gamergate, how we basically boycotted and wrote to all the advertisers against Gawker, make them pull out of that outlet because of the crap they were writing? We should do the exact same thing to the British press. We should email all these people. There's a list of all the advertisers. I'm sure we can find it. They're not going to hide that. They can't. And we can email all these individual advertising companies, all these people who just put ads on there and say the Daily Mail, Daily Mirror, The Guardian, whoever's doing it, are engaging in fake news, in lies and misrepresenting things and lying to the public for their own interests. Don't support this. If you believe in free speech, if you believe in honesty and integrity and principle, don't give people like this your money. It cost Gawker 6 figures. Imagine what we can do now. I think they would think twice. The smearing's not going to end until we end it ourselves, because this is what journalists do these days, or rather what they've always done. Only this time it seems to be much more in your face and people seem to be much more aware of it. I mean, Scooby-Doo, they taught us about this. That's exactly what they do. They cut things up, they take you out of context, and then they spread that to the world and repeat it over and over again until it becomes the truth, even though it's actually a lie. Anyway, that's all I have to say on the matter. I think that we have to give Sargon as much support as we possibly can. We have to combat the lies, because even now we have people who technically have no skin in the game meme against Sargon because, well, they want to watch the world burn. These people need to be called out as well because they're not helping. But the thing is, they're just trying to stoke the fires and make them bigger. You've got to make sure that you call them out and try to stop them as best as you can. So anyway, until next time, I'll see you later.